Commander Vox Tool of the Galactic Hegemony's 7th Fleet stared at the primitive vessel on the main view screen. The craft was laughably small, barely larger than a standard cargo shuttle. Its hull was patched in several places, and its propulsion system relied on Vox Tool's snorted chemical rockets. Actual chemical rockets, like something from a historical archive. "Is this some kind of joke?" Vox Tool asked, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. "Our sensors must be malfunctioning." Lieutenant Pax Ren adjusted her uniform collar nervously. "No malfunction confirmed, Commander. That vessel originated from the quarantined world designated Sol 3. Earth," Vox Tool said, rolling the strange word around in his mouth like something distasteful. "The humans were explicitly forbidden from leaving their solar system after the incident at Proxima Centauri." "Yes, Commander. Yet here we are." The bridge fell silent as the crew watched the tiny craft drift closer to their massive dreadnought. The vessel was so small that their weapon systems couldn't even lock onto it properly. The targeting computers kept insisting it was merely space debris. "Open a communication channel," Vox Tool ordered. "Let's see what foolishness drives this human to defy the quarantine edict." The view screen flickered, and the face of a human female appeared. She had short auburn hair, green eyes, and a small scar running down her left cheek. Most disturbing to Vox Tool was her expression, not fear, not even appropriate reverence, but something that looked disturbingly like amusement. "This is Commander Vox Tool of the Galactic Hegemony's 7th Fleet. You have violated interstellar law by leaving your quarantine system. State your purpose immediately." The human smiled. Actually smiled, as if this were some pleasant conversation over refreshments rather than her imminent destruction. "Hello there. I'm Eleanor Reed. But my friends call me Ellie." She waved at the screen. "Beautiful ship you have got. Much nicer than this rust bucket I'm piloting." Vox Tool's secondary heart skipped a beat. Humans were known to be unpredictable, but this casual disregard for authority was unprecedented. "You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your craft will be impounded, and you will be returned to Sol 3 for punishment by your planetary authorities." The human Ellie tilted her head. "Yeah, about that. I'd rather not. I have come an awfully long way, and I have got places to be. Perhaps we could reach some kind of agreement?" "I'm very reasonable." "Agreement?" Vox Tool's voice rose to a pitch that made his bridge officers wince. "The quarantine edict is absolute. Your species nearly triggered an interstellar war through your recklessness at Proxima Centauri." "Ancient history," Ellie said with a dismissive wave. "That was almost 50 years ago. Nobody even remembers what happened there. 27 ships destroyed. 3 species brought to the brink of extinction. The Proxima star itself nearly collapsed into a black hole." Ellie sighed. "Look, I understand you are just doing your job. Enforcing rules, keeping the galaxy safe, all that good stuff. But I really need to get to the Andromeda Trade Summit. I have an appointment." Admiral Ziv Kor, who had been silently observing from his command chair, finally spoke. "The Andromeda Trade Summit is for recognized spacefaring civilizations only. Humans are not invited." "Well, that's just rude," Ellie replied. "But I wasn't invited as a representative of Earth. I was invited as a consultant." Vox Tool exchanged confused glances with the Admiral. "A consultant? For whom?" "The Fractians." The name sent a ripple of discomfort through the bridge. The Fractians were one of the oldest and most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. They rarely interacted with younger races, considering most to be barely sentient by their standards. "The Fractians would never associate with humans," Admiral Ziv Kor declared. "This is a transparent deception." Ellie shrugged. "Call them and ask." "I will wait." The Admiral narrowed his 6 eyes. "Lieutenant Pax Ren, send a priority communication to the Fraction delegation at the summit. Verify this human's claim." As they waited for a response, Vox Tool studied the human more carefully. She appeared relaxed, almost bored, as if being intercepted by one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy was a minor inconvenience rather than a life-threatening situation. "Why would the Fractians want a human consultant?" he asked, genuinely curious despite himself. "Oh, you know how it is," Ellie replied vaguely. "Sometimes you need an outside perspective, someone who thinks differently." Lieutenant Pax Wren suddenly straightened at her console. "Commander, Admiral, we are receiving a priority response from the Fraxian High Council." The view screen split, and the crystalline form of a Fraxian elder materialized. Its voice resonated directly into their minds, bypassing the need for audible speech. "The human Eleanor Reed speaks truth. She is expected at the summit. Allow her passage immediately." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun. Admiral Zivkor's mouth gaped open, all four of his mandibles extended in shock. "This is unprecedented." "Told you," Ellie said cheerfully. "So, am I free to go?" Vox Tool's mind raced. The Fraxians were not to be defied, yet the quarantine edict was absolute. One human, even with Fraxian backing, cannot overturn the unanimous decision of the Galactic Council. "Oh, I'm not trying to overturn anything," Ellie assured him. "I'm just one person on one very important errand. Think of me as a special exception." "There are no exceptions to galactic law," Admiral Zivkor stated firmly. "Really?" "Because I have studied your laws quite thoroughly, and Section 17, subsection 9 of the Quarantine Edict specifically allows for individual exemptions when sponsored by a founding race. The Fraxians are a founding race, if I'm not mistaken." The bridge fell silent again. Vox Tool could hear the soft humming of the ship's systems as everyone processed this information. "She's correct," Lieutenant Pax Wren confirmed after checking her datapad. "Such an exemption exists, though it has never been invoked before." Ellie smiled triumphantly. "Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there?" Admiral Zivkor rose from his command chair, his massive frame towering over everyone else on the bridge. "Oh, very well. You may proceed to the Andromeda Trade Summit. But you will be escorted by Commander Vox Tool's cruiser to ensure you go directly there and nowhere else." Ellie's smile faltered slightly. "That's really not necessary. My little ship is barely holding together as it is. Your massive cruiser would probably scare half the delegates into thinking war had broken out." "Those are my terms," the Admiral said firmly. "Accept them, or return to Earth immediately." Ellie sighed dramatically. "Fine. But Commander Vox Tool better be good company. It's a 3-day journey to Andromeda Station, and I have been alone in this tin can for weeks. I could use some decent conversation." Vox Tool's facial tentacles curled in horror. "Admiral, surely someone else can." "This is your assignment, Commander," Admiral Zivkor said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Consider it a learning opportunity. The Fraxians see something valuable in this human. Perhaps you will discover what it is." And that was how Commander Vox Tool, decorated veteran of the Orion conflict and third-generation officer of the prestigious House of Tool, found himself escorting a single human female across restricted space in direct contravention of everything he believed about galactic security. The cruiser Indomitable dwarfed Ellie's tiny vessel, which she had named Audacity. A fitting name, Vox Tool thought sourly as he watched the pathetic craft dock in the smallest bay on his ship. When the airlock cycled open, Vox Tool was surprised to see the human was even smaller in person than she had appeared on the view screen. She wore a simple jumpsuit that had clearly seen better days and carried only a small backpack. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable," he said stiffly. "I am Commander Vox Tool." "Nice to meet you in the flesh," Ellie replied, extending her hand. Vox Tool stared at it in confusion. "Right, cultural differences," she said, withdrawing her hand. "On Earth, we shake hands as a greeting. Shows we are not carrying weapons." "Humans and their primitive customs," Vox Tool muttered. "Follow me? I will show you to your quarters." As they walked through the corridors of the massive cruiser, crew members stopped and stared at the human. Most had never seen one in person before, and rumors of the incident at Proxima Centauri had elevated humans to almost mythical status, dangerous, unpredictable creatures that had nearly destroyed a star through sheer recklessness. "Your crew seems friendly," Ellie remarked sarcastically as another officer practically flattened himself against a wall to avoid coming too close to her. "They are cautious, as they should be," Vox-Tull replied. "Humans have a reputation." "Based on one incident 50 years ago? That's a long time to hold a grudge." 47 years, 8 months, and 13 days, Vox-Tull corrected. And it was not merely an incident. It was the most catastrophic first contact in recorded galactic history. "Well, nobody's perfect," Ellie said with a shrug. "I wasn't even born then." They reached a small room near the security sector. "These will be your quarters," Vox-Tull informed her. "You will remain here unless escorted by myself or another senior officer." Ellie surveyed the sparse room with its utilitarian furnishings. Cozy. "Does it come with room service?" "Food will be provided at standard meal intervals. Your biological requirements have been programmed into the synthesizer." "How thoughtful," she replied, testing the firmness of the sleeping platform with her hand. "And entertainment? Books? Music? Something to pass the time during our 3-day journey." "This is not a pleasure cruise, human. This is a military vessel on a security detail. Eleanor, or Ellie, not human. Would you like it if I just called you alien all the time?" Vox-Tull's facial tentacles twitched in irritation. "Very well, Eleanor. A data pad with approved cultural and historical materials will be provided." "Approved materials?" She raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, carefully sanitized information about how wonderful the galactic hegemony is and how fortunate lesser species are to be under your benevolent guidance." "The materials are factual and educational," Vox-Tull said stiffly. "I'm sure they are." Ellie sat on the edge of the sleeping platform. "So, Commander, what do you want to know?" "You know, about me. About why the Fractians wanted a human consultant. About Earth." "You must be curious." Vox-Tull hesitated. He was curious, despite himself. "The Fractians are notoriously selective about their associations, and their involvement with your case is puzzling." "Maybe they just like my sparkling personality," Ellie suggested with a grin. "The Fractians do not factor personality into their decisions. They are beings of pure logic and calculation." "Are they? Or is that just what everyone assumes because they are so advanced and mysterious?" Ellie leaned forward. "Maybe they have evolved beyond that kind of thinking. Maybe they see value in things other species overlook, such as creativity, intuition, the ability to make cognitive leaps without needing every step carefully mapped out." Vox-Tull scoffed. "Humans mistake their own impulsiveness for intuition. Your species acts first and considers consequences later, if at all." "Sometimes that's exactly what's needed," Ellie countered. "When you are facing a completely new situation, sometimes the established protocols are worse than useless, they are dangerous." That kind of thinking led to the Proxima catastrophe. And it also led to breakthroughs that saved billions of lives throughout human history. We call it innovation, taking risks to find new solutions. Vox-Tull found himself engaged despite his better judgment. "What exactly will you be consulting on at the summit?" Ellie smiled mysteriously. "Now that would be telling, wouldn't it? Let's just say the Fractians encountered a problem they couldn't solve with their usual methods. They needed someone who thinks differently. And that person was you? Out of billions of humans? I have certain specialized knowledge." "What knowledge could a primitive human possibly possess that would be valuable to the Fractians?" Ellie's smile faded, and for the first time Vox-Tull saw something serious, almost dangerous, in her eyes. "You know, Commander, for someone whose species only achieved faster than light travel 3 centuries ago, you are awfully quick to call others primitive." Before Vox-Tull could respond, his communication device chimed. "Commander, we have a situation in the engine room. Your presence is requested immediately." "I will be there shortly," he replied. then turned back to Ellie. Remain here. The door will be locked for security purposes. Of course it will, Ellie muttered, because I'm so dangerous. As Voxtool left, he couldn't help but wonder if perhaps she was. Not physically, any of his security officers could overpower her easily, but in some other, less tangible way. The way she spoke, the confidence she exuded despite being alone and surrounded by potential enemies, suggested either madness or a level of assurance that came from knowing something others did not. What exactly was this human bringing to the Andromeda Trade Summit? And why were the Fractians so interested in her contribution? The situation in the engine room turned out to be a minor fluctuation in the quantum drive, nothing that required Commander Voxtool's personal attention. He strongly suspected Chief Engineer Greg Zan had manufactured the crisis to give him an excuse to escape the human's presence. Everything is under control, Commander Greg Zan assured him, not quite meeting his gaze. The fluctuation has stabilized. Next time confirm it's an actual emergency before summoning me, Voxtool said coldly. I have more important matters to attend to. As he made his way back to the human's quarters, Voxtool found himself strangely reluctant to continue their conversation. Eleanor Reed unsettled him in ways he couldn't quite articulate. She showed none of the fear or awe that other species typically displayed toward the hegemony. Instead, she treated him almost as an equal, which was both offensive and refreshing. When he reached her quarters, he found the door unlocked and the room empty. Security alert. He barked into his communicator. The human has escaped confinement. All personnel on high alert. But before he could initiate a ship-wide lockdown, his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Dexlon, responded with surprising calm. Sir, the human is in the officer's mess. She said you authorized her to get food. I authorized no such thing. Yes, well, she's quite convincing, sir. Voxtool stormed down the corridor toward the officer's mess, his anger growing with each step. When he arrived, he found a scene so bizarre he momentarily froze in the doorway. Eleanor Reed sat at the central table, surrounded by 6 of his senior officers. They were all leaning toward her, clearly engrossed in whatever story she was telling. Most shocking of all, Sub-Commander Dexlon was actually laughing, a sound Voxtool had never heard from his notoriously stern second-in-command. So the ambassador says, "That's not my wife, that's my environmental suit." Ellie delivered the punchline with perfect timing, and the officers erupted in laughter. What is the meaning of this? Voxtool demanded. The officers immediately jumped to attention, their amusement vanishing instantly. All except Ellie, who casually popped something into her mouth. These food cubes aren't half bad, she remarked, though they could use some salt. You were confined to quarters for a reason, Voxtool said, his voice dangerously low. Yes, but I got hungry. And bored. Mostly bored. She gestured to the officers around her. Your crew is much better company than those approved materials you mentioned. My officers are not here for your entertainment. Obviously not. They are terrible at it. I have been entertaining them. She turned to Dexlon. Thanks for the cultural exchange, Sub-Commander. Those stories about the Regellian peace negotiations were fascinating. Dexlon looked torn between pride and embarrassment. The human, I mean. Eleanor has some interesting perspectives on interspecies diplomacy, Commander, which she shared without security clearance or authorization, Voxtool pointed out. Return to your posts, all of you. Now. As the officers filed out, Ellie remained seated, finishing her meal with infuriating calm. You know, Commander, you might consider that I didn't break out of my room. Your security officer let me out after I explained the situation. What situation? That locking up a diplomatic envoy under Fraxian protection violates at least 3 interstellar conventions, and he could potentially cause an incident far worse than whatever happened at Proxima Centauri. Voxtool's facial tentacles curled in fury. You threatened my security officer? Not at all. I simply educated him on galactic law. She smiled sweetly. The same laws you are sworn to uphold. Before Voxtool could respond, The ship's alert system activated. A holographic display materialized above the table, showing a massive vessel approaching. A commander to the bridge, came the urgent call. Vox Tool grabbed Ellie's arm. "You are coming with me. I'm not letting you out of my sight again." Ooh, the bridge. Now we are talking. On the bridge, the crew worked with frantic efficiency as the massive unknown vessel loomed ever larger on the view screen. "Report," Vox Tool ordered. "Unknown vessel appeared from nowhere, sir," Lieutenant Pax Wren reported. No warp signature, no quantum wake. It just appeared. Species identification. None, sir. The configuration doesn't match any known design in our database. The vessel was unlike anything Vox Tool had ever seen, a massive, irregular structure that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. It defied conventional shipbuilding logic, with what appeared to be both organic and mechanical components fused together in impossible ways. "Weapons status?" "Unknown, sir. Our sensors can't penetrate their hull." "Shields up, battle stations," Vox Tool ordered. "Prepare to." "Wait," Ellie interrupted, stepping forward. "Don't do anything aggressive." Vox Tool turned to her in disbelief. "This is a military matter. You will remain silent." "That ship belongs to the Voidborn," she said urgently. "And if you power up your weapons systems, they will obliterate this vessel before you can even target them." The bridge fell silent. "The Voidborn are a myth," Lieutenant Pax Wren said finally. "A spacer's tale to frighten new recruits." "They are very real," Ellie insisted. "And they are here for me." Vox Tool stared at her. "Explain, now." "The Voidborn exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They perceive time and space differently than we do. That's why your sensors can't make sense of their vessel. It's only partially in our reality. And they are here for you because—" Ellie sighed. "Because I'm the only human who's ever communicated with them successfully. That's why the Fraxians want me at the summit. The Voidborn have appeared near several key Fraxian worlds, and no one can figure out what they want or why they are here." The ship's communication system suddenly activated without any input from the crew. A sound filled the bridge, not quite language, more like music overlaid with mathematical patterns. To Vox Tool's astonishment, Ellie responded with similar sounds, her voice taking on harmonics that should have been impossible for human vocal cords. The exchange continued for nearly a minute before ending as abruptly as it had begun. "What did you say to them?" Vox Tool demanded. "I explained we are on our way to the summit and asked them not to destroy your ship." Ellie's expression had changed, becoming more serious and focused. "They will escort us the rest of the way." "You expect me to believe that you, a member of a quarantined species with barely functional interstellar travel, can communicate with a mythical race that even the Fraxians can't understand?" "Yes." Her simple answer held no hint of boasting or deception. "That's exactly what I expect you to believe, because it's true." "How?" The question escaped Vox Tool before he could stop himself. "I'm what humans call neurodivergent specifically. I have a form of synesthesia that lets me perceive patterns in ways most humans can't. When the Voidborn first appeared near Earth 15 years ago, everyone thought they were hostile. Our military prepared to attack. But I heard something in their transmissions. Music, mathematics, and meaning all woven together." "You are saying you understand their language?" "It's not exactly language. It's more like pure concept, translated through harmonic mathematics. I don't just hear it, I see it, feel it, taste it." She gestured at the strange vessel. "The Voidborn aren't hostile. They are curious. They have been traveling between dimensions for millions of years, observing. They rarely interact directly with single-dimension species like ours. If what you say is true, why didn't the Fraxians come to retrieve you themselves?" "Politics." Ellie shrugged. "The Fraxians didn't want to openly defy the quarantine edict. Sending a ship to Earth would have forced the hegemony to either ignore the violation or confront a founding race. Neither option was appealing. So they arranged for me to leave Earth on my own and happened to be intercepted by your patrol. We were manipulated, Vox Tool realized with growing anger. More like carefully maneuvered into doing the right thing. Ellie smiled sympathetically. The Fraxians need my help, but they also respect galactic law. This was their compromise. Over the next 2 days, the Indomitable continued its journey to Andromeda Station with the Voidborn vessel pacing them silently. The mood aboard the cruiser had shifted dramatically. The crew no longer avoided Ellie but sought her out, peppering her with questions about Earth, the Voidborn, and her unusual abilities. Vox Tool found himself increasingly drawn into these conversations despite his initial resistance. The human's perspective challenged many of his long-held beliefs about the proper order of the galaxy. "You still haven't explained what happened at Proxima Centauri," he said during one of their now regular meals together. Ellie set down her food cube with a thoughtful expression. "The official story is that human scientists accidentally triggered a chain reaction in Proxima's stellar core while testing an experimental drive system." "And the unofficial story?" "They encountered a Voidborn vessel. Not understanding what they were seeing, they attempted to capture it for study. The Voidborn tried to leave our dimension, and the energy release nearly collapsed the star." She met his gaze directly. "Human recklessness, yes, but born of ignorance, not malice. And now you are the bridge between our realities. One of them, anyway. There are others like me on Earth. Oh, not many, but enough. We have been studying the Voidborn's mathematical language since the incident, building understanding. Yet your species remains quarantined." For now, her confidence was unshakable. The summit will change that. When they finally arrived at Andromeda Station, Vox Tool was surprised to receive a priority message from Admiral Zeev Kor. "You and the human will represent the hegemony at the summit," the Admiral informed him without preamble. "Sir, I have no diplomatic training." "Neither does anyone else when it comes to the Voidborn," Zeev Kor cut him off. "You have spent the most time with the human. You understand the situation better than anyone else in the fleet." And so Commander Vox Tool, who had begun this journey determined to uphold the quarantine of humanity, found himself escorting Eleanor Reed into the grand chamber of the Andromeda Trade Summit as an equal partner. The chamber was filled with representatives from over 100 spacefaring civilizations. At the center, the crystalline forms of the Fraxian High Council gleamed under the ambient light, and hovering above them all was a shifting, impossible construct that Vox Tool recognized as a manifestation of the Voidborn. "The human has arrived," announced the lead Fraxian, its mental voice resonating through the chamber. "Now we may begin." What followed was unlike any diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Ellie stood at the center of the chamber, serving as both translator and negotiator between the assembled species and the multi-dimensional Voidborn. The mathematical harmonies she produced seemed to physically affect the environment, creating patterns of light and sound that conveyed complex concepts no conventional language could express. Vox Tool watched in growing amazement as the truth emerged. The Voidborn hadn't appeared by accident or with hostile intent. They had come with a warning. A dimensional anomaly was approaching, one that would affect all reality. They had been searching for species capable of understanding and helping address this threat. "They need our help," Vox Tool asked incredulously when Ellie explained this. "But they exist in multiple dimensions." "Which is precisely why they can't fix this alone," Ellie replied. "The anomaly exists primarily in our dimensional plane. They can see it, but they can't directly interact with it. They need all of us working together." As the summit progressed, a new alliance took shape, one that transcended old rivalries and prejudices. The quarantine edict was unanimously suspended, with Earth invited to join the galactic community as full members. "They will be sending ships to Earth within the week," Ellie told Vox Tool after the final session. "We have technologies and perspectives that will be crucial for understanding the anomaly. And the Voidborn will continue working with us through interpreters like me." She smiled. "It turns out what makes humans dangerous, our unpredictability, Our cognitive leaps, our willingness to try the untried is exactly what's needed right now. On the final day of the summit, Admiral Zeev Kor made a surprise appearance. He approached Vox Tool and Ellie as they prepared to depart. Commander Vox Tool, the Hegemony Council has approved a new joint task force to coordinate our response to the dimensional anomaly. You are being reassigned as military liaison. Sir? You will be working directly with representatives from Earth and the other major powers. Your experience with both the human and the Voidborn makes you uniquely qualified. Vox Tool's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he processed this information. And my current command, Dex Lon, will be promoted to take your place. The Indomitable will serve as your mobile headquarters. The Admiral turned to Ellie. MS Reed, the Council extends an official apology for the treatment of your species. We were overly cautious. Apology accepted, Ellie said graciously. Though I suspect it was easier to offer after learning about the dimensional anomaly threatening everyone. The Admiral's facial tentacles twitched in what might have been embarrassment. Perhaps. Necessity has a way of clarifying priorities. After the Admiral departed, Vox Tool found himself alone with Ellie for what might be the last time before their new duties separated them. You knew this would happen, he said. It wasn't a question. Not exactly, she replied, but I hoped something like it would. The Voidborn showed me possibilities branching timelines where different choices led to different outcomes. In the best ones, we worked together. And in the worst, we destroyed each other and the anomaly consumed everything afterward. Her green eyes held his gaze steadily. The galaxy needs humanity's creativity and adaptability just as much as it needs the hegemony's order and stability. You came alone, Vox Tool mused, in a ship that barely functions with no weapons or defenses, carrying only knowledge and hope. Sometimes that's all you need. Ellie extended her hand in the human greeting gesture. Partners? This time Vox Tool knew what to do. He extended his upper right limb and clasped her small hand in his. Partners. As word spread throughout the galaxy about the lone human who had brokered peace with the Voidborn and united the galactic species against a common threat, a new saying began to circulate among the younger races. She came alone. The galaxy will remember her name forever. And they did.